Welcome to another installment of Let's Hang Out. Do you mind if I paint? I am Dan, and this morning, well, it's morning here in Central Florida, and we got such good feedback on the tutorials that are done now for my first painting. This one's going to be for the one we call Purple Splendor. Bob called his Purple Splendor, and that name's good enough for me. So let's jump in. We'll get started right away. We've got our 16 by 20. We're doing this one landscape this time. I need to prep it with liquid white, so that's going to be this first video. Then I'll show you the colors that we're going to use for Purple Splendor. It's a very limited palette. So I'm going to take my jar of liquid white. I'm going straight in with the 2-inch brush. Oh, just getting somewhere about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch there. Knock off any little drippies. Let's just put some dots around, and then we're going to tie those dots together. Simple as can be. I'm just going to use some crisscross strokes. Be a little careful when we get out here to the edges so we're not flipping paint off all over everywhere. I had mentioned, and a few of you had asked about those first paintings I talked about in the other series. I think if I move out of the camera, you can just see their edges over here. We'll pull those in one day, but those are the ones I don't want to flick white paint over. So I just pull in carefully from the outside and then use this crisscross stroke. You may think of it as a figure 8, as Nick calls it over in New Smyrna. Either way, just get this paint distributed evenly. It doesn't have to take a long time, but do it correctly, and it'll make the rest of this painting just really sing right along and go really well for us. So you can probably see on camera, I've got a few lighter spots over here on this right side and corner, but I've still got quite a bit of paint in the brush, and you can see with just some effort and strokes back and forth, we can get that really well distributed. I'll show you our secret check in just a second. Do some long horizontal and vertical strokes just to make sure we've got it distributed well. And then we'll check. And it's looking pretty good from where I'm standing. So we'll do our paper towel trick after we check. And on we'll go with Purple Splendor. So clean, dry hand, middle finger in the middle, inside fingers, top corners, pinky and thumb on the bottom. Those actually look really quite good to me. Let me flip my hand this way and see if it'll focus. There you go. See how you can still see my fingerprints there? Being able to see the lines in your fingerprints is what you're going for. So that looks really good. Your fingerprints will be all over your canvas by the time you're done, so you don't really have to come back and smooth those out. Maybe not your literal fingerprints, but certainly your brush strokes. Folded up paper towel, gently across. Go horizontally. Doesn't really matter which way you go first, but horizontally, fold over to a clean, dry part. Gently vertically back and forth. One more pass with your 2-inch brush, horizontal and vertical. If you have a preference on which way you leave it, do it that way. But there you go. There is a great covering of liquid white. Got our canvas all prepped and ready to go for Purple Splendor. I'm going to put liquid white over to the side. We won't need that till almost the end of this one. I'm wiping out my brush real good because I'm going to use my same 2-inch brush. All I do to wipe a brush is take a clean, dry paper towel, put it over the end, give it a pretty good squish, and then just do kind of some scrubby circles in that paper towel. You can, of course, go through the whole cleaning procedure if you've got a good setup with a bucket and a little wire rack at the bottom of it to scrape that off, but most of that has come off. That's certainly going to be good enough to do our base coat. So our palette today is pretty limited. Got great feedback that the white piece of freezer paper is super helpful. This is just like we would have it in class. So we'd have this palette taped down to each station. Well, actually I let the students tape it down because if they're left-handed or right-handed or have a preference on which side they want their paint, go with your preference. That's always the way to do it, the way it feels good to you. So we've got titanium white, phthalo blue, Van Dyke brown, alizarin crimson, and tucked way off in the corner by himself is just a little bright red, so we're ready to sign it. I'll mix up a good purple color at the beginning of the next video and we'll get rolling. But there you go, liquid white is done, canvas is ready. There's our colors for Purple Splendor.